Hi, good evening. I just finished looking at all of the discussion board posts on your uh, trip budget, and I have a few concerns, and I thought I might be able to help you out a little bit just by some examples. And what I wanted to show you here, when you look under week 4, under modules, the budget guidelines are there as well as samples. And I looked at those samples, and I think I've got a better sample for you. But many of you have left out some of the portions of this project, and I wanted to go over those. So most of you are getting all of this part okay. But when we come down to the features, there's a lot of them that are left out here. Most of you left out the fill pattern, the cell borders, and the wrap text, the angled orientation, and a lot of the formulas. So I'm going to go through that real quick and show you some of these things. So hold on a minute and let me get over here. This file is an example of one that was done by one of my students in the face-to-face class. And if you take a look at this, he's gone a little bit overboard. He got a lot of extra credit on this. But when you take a look at this, he has angled orientation right here. See how the titles are angled? And how you do that is if you go to the Home tab, right here towards the center, see the orientation is angled. He angled it clockwise. You could angle it counterclockwise. You can angle it vertical, however you want it. But I agree with this. I like the counterclockwise. So that's your angled orientation. These colors are your fill. So how he did that was he went to the fill button here and he chose the color blue. You could change any color you want, and that fills your cells with color. Now, as far as the cell borders, when you select a range of cells here, or even one, when you go over here below the font type and you click on this button, the border button, you can choose borders. Well, the borders are your cell borders. Excuse me, my dog is barking at me. And he chose all cell borders. And that's what causes these black lines between the cells. So that's how you do that. Now the merge and center, if you have a title, I'm going to switch over to another project here real quick. Okay, this chart is one of the students in this class. Please don't feel that I'm picking on you. There's no name on this or anything. It's just a great example for me to use to show you some of these things. If you take a look at this and I look at the formulas, there is only one formula on here. So this and the minimum and maximums were all calculated manually. So what you need to do here is, in order to calculate this the way we want it, what you need to do is you need to go over here to the Home tab. If I want to calculate the minimum value between these two cells, I'm going to go to this minimum and I'm going to go right over here to the functions. And if I scroll down, there's a minimum function right here. You see, Excel asks me, is this the cells you want? I press enter, and you notice here I'm still in formula view, but I'll show you that in a minute. The maximums, it's the same way. If I do over here on the functions and I click on maximum, now I don't want this minimum value in there, so what I want is these two cells right here. Now I know this sort of looks strange because they're both the same numbers, but I'll show you why. Now on the average, I'm going to go back over here and click average. Select those two cells, press enter. And I could also do that with a sum. I know that this student had calculated this, but that's sort of the hard way to do it. If I click on the sum and I click here and I select my range, here we go. Now, if I copy these four formulas and I grab a hold of that fill handle that we talked about before, drag it down, there is some functions and formulas. If I click off show formulas, look at what I've got now. I have the calculations, see the minimum on this, okay, and the average. There's your calculations. So now I've got a lot more formulas. Also, down here, you've got your gas at the door. I think that what they really mean here with the door is probably the registration fee. Okay, I'm assuming that. So I'm going to put that there, and I'm going to show you what we're going to do. Okay, and then we have spending money, we have the tax rates, we have the budgeted amount is $1,000. The cost of the trip, there's no formula here. What you need to do on the cost of the trip is we're going to start with an equal sign, and we're going to add the gas, plus we're going to add the registration, plus we're going to add the spending money, plus we're going to add the total of the meals. But look at here, I don't have a total of the meals, a grand total. So what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to get a grand total here so we can add the meals. So I'm going to go back over here to these formula functions. I'm going to do my sum again, and look what it's adding now, the total of the meals. So when I press enter on that, I'm going to go back here to this formula down here, and now I can add the total of the meals. When I add the total of the meals, I'm now going to come up with, I've got the formula, using a formula to calculate all of this, the total cost of the trip. Now, one of your requirements is to have 3 different formulas. You have 4 functions up here. And once again, remember the difference between a function and a formula is the formula is something you wrote. The functions are a calculation that Excel wrote, and in the minimum, maximum, average, those are things that Excel wrote. You wrote this formula. So now what I can do here to calculate this, the savings of the trip, what this really should be titled as is money left over, or yeah, we're just going to write money left over because he did have money left over. And what you're going to do here is you're going to take the budget and you're going to subtract the cost of the trip. And that's your formula. Now, how many formulas do we have now? We have only two formulas. Well, you need a third formula. So what I would do now is, and one of those needs to be an absolute formula. What I would do is I would put my tax rate up here. On the top, I would put my tax rate. And the tax rate is 7.5%. And always remember, on a tax, it needs to be in decimals. Otherwise, you're going to be figuring out 750% of it. Now, if you're wanting to do an absolute formula, what you need to do is, let's take the total of these meals. There's my equal sign. Total of the breakfast. I'm going to multiply that times the tax rate. And if I am going to continue to use this over and over again, I'm going to make this cell I2 my absolute formula because I want that I2 to always stay the same there. So once again, I'm going to press the F4 key. Accept that. And now I'm going to copy that formula down. So that is the tax on meals. I hope this is making sense to you. So there's the tax rate. So now we have 1, 2, 3 formulas, and one of them is an absolute formula. So there's a couple of other things that you need to do, and one of them is, I'm going to take this out of formula view here for a minute, you guys, so you can see the actual answers. See how we have the tax on the meals? You don't need to total it unless you really want to. Okay, so your meals are a total of $558. Your gas is $90. Registration is $20. Spending money is $200. So your seminar really only cost you $310, and you were budgeted $1,000. So your money left over is $690. This is all done with formulas. So that's going to help you out a lot. Now, you need to make you need to have a percentage format. If you go to your home tab, and right over here in your numbering group, since I did this 0.075, if I click here to format it as a percentage, see how it says 8%? Well, that's not really true. So I'm going to increase the decimals to 7.5%. I already have my accounting number format, but if I didn't, all I would need to do is highlight this and click on the $sign. One of the other things you need to do is merge cells. These are merged, but real practical application is, if you're going to merge your cells, don't you want this title all the way across your spreadsheet? I would merge these cells, and I would highlight all of these cells here to where it's centered across the whole spreadsheet. Click on Merge and Center. There we go. This is merged. Now see, I'm using only one cell, and it is centered over the entire spreadsheet. Oops, I missed one there, so it's merged there. Wrap text, what is that? To wrap the text is where you have a title. Look at this title. This is the full title right here, but look, only part of it is showing. But I really don't want, I could do this and I could widen the column, but that sort of looks awkward, doesn't it? So let's go back here and let's leave this here. If I take this title and I wrap the text, see there? You still want to widen it a little bit so registration is all on one line. That's what wrap the text is. You need to find one that is narrow enough. The column is narrow and the title is wider. And this student had used 2 cells to put this in. He could have put this in just one by doing a wrap text. Same here. Could have done the same thing here. Could have used 1 column instead of 2. Trying to think of what else you guys were missing. Text. Sorting your figures. What I want there is sorted alphabetically. See how this is breakfast, lunch, and dinner? Well, that's normally what the order of the day. But just to make sure you know how to sort things alphabetically or any other way, to sort a range of cells, you need to make sure that you select the entire range. If I only select this range and I sort, it's on your home tab, and I go to sort and filter and I sort it A to Z. You see here, it did not pick up everything I wanted it to pick up. So what I'm going to do is, if I pick up everything. It will also sort all the way across the column. And I go to the Home tab, I click on Sort, Sort A to Z. There, it sorted everything like it should be. Now, the last thing I want to show you is about the chart. First of all, many of you included totals in the chart. Please, please, please do not include your total. It throws your chart all off. So if I were to include the totals, and many of you selected the entire range here to create your chart, and you inserted a chart that has minimums, average, maximums, that chart really doesn't say what you want to do. What you need to highlight your totals, your titles, I'm sorry, both your horizontal and your vertical titles. That way they will be included in your chart, and you don't have to do quite so much. If I go here and I insert a chart, and I do a 3D column chart, look at the difference between these two charts. This has breakfast, lunch, and dinner. It has the dollar amounts. It has the Thursday and Friday. Well, from working with your charts, you know you can move your legend around. Make sure that you add titles, you add food cost, you add other things that you want to add to your chart. You can modify your chart. But that's the difference in the range you select for your chart. So I really hope that these little tips help. Make sure to use that checklist, and you may have to look at this a couple of times. And if you have any questions, please feel free to email me. I'll watch the discussion boards very closely this weekend, see if anybody has any questions. And if I need to, I can extend the deadline to give you guys a little bit more time, because I think there was some major questions. Okay, communicate with me and we'll get it done.